Hello, and welcome to Fact Schmacks. It's the podcast good enough to get you a C.
Minus.
My name's Matt, and I've got a story to tell you.
And my name's Kev. I have a story to interrupt.
Hey, Kevin.
Oh, what?
Kevin, I hear White Rabbit's peeking for you.
Yeah. So
You're just at the right spot in your gummy.
Yeah, because I thought maybe we would record, around 8. So I ate a gummy.
Absolutely.
It'll kick in. Now it's kicked in for the beginning instead of the middle.
Uh-huh.
So, and I had a lot to do at the beginning. So you're just going to have
did.
to all bear with me now.
Yeah, I'm just laying it all out there for everybody to see. Our dirty laundry. Kevin has put himself in an awful position, but he wants to lead off this podcast. Let us see how he does.
Matt, I'm going to give that rating, or that intro a rating of like 3. I mean, it was good that it set the stage.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It just came in so hot.
Yeah. Well, I prefer to think that your scale's out of 3. So I'm going to take that as a terrific score.
I guess I should have been a little more specific in the beginning.
Absolutely, you should have.
All right.
Now, what have you got for me, Kevin?
So I've got a couple things. I've got this game of facts, schmacks, and depending on the outcome, I might have something else in store here.
What?
Yeah. Listen.
What happens if we don't get to that something else?
Well, you know what? We're going to get to that something else because I've found lately that our fact schmacks games have been very one-sided, and that you've figured out something that's allowed you to...
I've cracked the code.
Yeah. You figured me out, and that's fine. That's all well.
I've cracked the chode.
So here's what I suggest.
Yes.
I want to challenge you.
Uh-huh.
To a trivia game. A facts, schmacks trivia game.
Okay.
Kev's facts, schmacks trivia. It's kind of like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. You'll have a couple. You'll have like this 60
multiple choice
60-40 rule where you'll be able to get rid of 50% of the question or answer.
Okay.
You can use you can use a Google. Look it up on Google. There's going to be one option where you have to look it up on Pornhub. I think that'd be hilarious. So we'll have a couple different things, and it'll be like kind of like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, where there's going to be a trivia question, and there's going to be 4 options. So A and B will be, standard trivia answers. C will be dedicated to schmacked because it's a C. And D is the wild card. Could just be another trivia option. Could just be something out there. Something a little wild. Because the D gets wild on this show. What do you think?
Okay.
Huh?
Well, as long as we're putting our cards out there, I've helped somebody move today, so I've already had a pop or two.
Okay. So I could
whatever.
Yeah? All right.
Yeah.
So we're going to have...
What do you got?
Well, right now we're just doing a normal Fact Schmacks game. This is going to be a bonus episode where you're going to be in the hot seat, and I'll even have a prize for you.
Oh, okay. I got you. Yep.
Yeah.
Love it. Love everything about it.
All right. Okay. So look forward to that. Probably going straight to the Patreon to die in ignominy. All right. So without much further ado, we have the Fact Schmacks game that we all know and love. 2 truths and a lie. Which,
absolutely.
We're going to talk about some side hustles, maybe some hobbies of some famous people.
Okay. I think I just suddenly came around to the idea that the whole preamble to this was you just pitching something to me that we were going to do later and had nothing to do with what we're about to do.
Do we have to restart this episode?
Nope. Famous people side hustles. I'm with you.
So this is our Fact Schmacks today. The other thing is a game we're gonna do like a little bonus game, a little bonus show.
Okay.
I thought about it
Are we
5
doing
minutes
that
before
at
the
all
episode.
today?
No. That's like in the future. That's like a future pitch. It's like supposed to be a teaser trailer. It's like a little live workshopping. You got to come back to us, buddy.
Sorry. Okay. All right. I'm with you. I had no idea that's what you were doing. All right. Look forward to that. Famous people side hustles.
How do we top that? Fact or schmack, Matt? Johnny Depp loves Barbie dolls.
What? How's that for?
Depp has a collection of Barbie dolls, some of which were characters he played in movies.
Okay.
But otherwise has a rather expansive collection of Barbie dolls.
Interesting. Johnny Depp.
Okay. So I had a couple things like, God damn it. Listen, guys, I want to make a little PSA here. Drugs are fun and they're great, but don't eat edibles before trying to do a podcast.
Okay.
Because you'll glaze over everything that's important. I had a couple
Johnny Depp has...
Yeah. So, you know, like Maynard Keenan, he owns like Caduceus Winery in Arizona.
Sure.
Seth Rogen, he's making weed and weed accessories in a business called Houseplant.
Yeah.
Right? Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad, they're doing vodka as Dos Hombres.
That is right. Yep.
Right. So this is where these come from. So Mike Tyson and pigeons, fact or schmacked. Besides pummeling people in the boxing ring, Mike Tyson is skilled and practiced pigeon racer. He often attends.
Okay.
They're like, what are those things? Like a pageant in Ontario, California every year that shows off these breeds of birds.
I see what you're doing here.
What?
You're filling in details for every one of them. I get you.
Am I? I don't know.
I see what you're doing. Okay. And then, all right, what else we got?
Jeff Bridges, who was otherwise commonly known as the Dude, happens to share a characteristic with that famous character of his, in that Jeff Bridges is a very avid bowler, having gone so far as to install 5 bowling lanes in his home in Montecito, California, to play while not actively engaged in various leagues around the area. So there you go. Much stumbling around. We have reached the end of the actual Fact Schmacks game that we were playing on this episode. You're now forced to make a decision.
I love you, buddy.
Somebody has to.
Remind me about that first one again.
You mean the game that we're going to play eventually?
No.
Okay, I know. The first one is
don't blame you for not being able to keep track.
Johnny Depp. You couldn't keep track. Johnny Depp enjoys playing with Barbie dolls and has a large collection.
Okay.
Of Barbie dolls.
And what's more to that story?
That he collects them. He collects them of like friends or of dolls that were made after him. And he uses them to like get in character and stuff.
I guess I've got a boy, so I don't know if there's licensed Disney characters that, or licensed characters that he's been barbified to, or canified, I guess. I don't know what you would call that. You've hit me with a real puzzler there, Kevin.
Mm-hmm. Now, if this was our game, you could phone a friend. Unfortunately, it's not.
Unfortunately, it's not.
No.
I'm going to go with the Johnny Depp one.
There are no friends here. And I win.
Yeah! What was it?
Johnny Depp has a collection of Barbies.
No kidding. Well, obviously, if that was, okay.
I mean,
where did I go wrong?
Jeff Bridges. As far as I know, he doesn't have bowling alleys in his house. He does live in Montecito.
I wanted that.
He does
to be
take
true.
a lot of pictures, and he plays guitar. He's allegedly a bit of a shutterbug.
That's
but
pretty cool.
as far as the bowling, I just made that up.
You just made that up.
Yes. Excellent.
That's great.
Wah, 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 wah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's terrific. That is terrific. I've got just such a small amount of beer left here. I'm just going to crack open another beer here.
I'm just going to apologize. I have been sick this week with a debilitating pneumonia. So
we were worried about you.
Yeah, I'm on a lot of drugs that help me not hate this pneumonia and not die from it. So, thanks for free healthcare there, and hopefully gonna be okay. Hanging up the darts and the smokes.
Chapter 1. The Creation.
Chapter 1. Hey, wait a minute. There's another book that has a chapter 1 that's about creation. What are we getting into here? This is our third episode of our trilogy.
That's true.
Okay.
This is of our Trinity.
Ooh, very biblical. Hey, listen, I just want to add one thing. I have been saying that generally the third episode is the worst. And so far, I have completely manifest destiny the start of this episode to just be just the worst. I'd like to point that out as we...
Very good. Very, very good.
Okay.
Alexei Pajitnov was born on March 14th, 1956 in Moscow. His mom was a movie journalist, which was unique among, people living in the USSR. His father was a dissident, which was also unique among people living in the USSR. His mom and dad divorced when he was 11. Then he lived with his mom, and she brought him to the Moscow Film Festival, where he got to experience Western culture, and he fell in love with movies, including James Bond. Funny enough, be weird. You don't think about it to be a kid and love a movie where your whole nation are the bad people. But
I'm sure when they dub it though. He works for the KGB.
Yeah, maybe. I guess I don't know. I don't know what he saw technically. When he was 17, Pajitnov got into computers because the USSR was actively trying to recruit, young, smart kids to get into computer-like fields, as part of that old Cold War to get people into sort of intelligence positions. So he was exposed to computers, and it really left a mark on him. After getting his master's in applied mathematics, he joined the Russian Academy of Sciences in Moscow, where he got to work on one of them old gym-sized computers, working on speech recognition and artificial intelligence. Fun stuff. But eventually, him and a few other employees that he worked with got an upgrade. Desktop computers. And this is in 1984, and they were ancient by the standards of the time, but they were pretty, new for them anyways. They could only display alphanumeric characters in green, but they were a big improvement over what they'd had before. Now, Pajitnov and two of his colleagues actually started working with games. They were all very interested in them. One of his co-workers had been working on reverse engineering Pac-Man on these alphanumeric computers, which was kind of a little bit of an engineering feat. And he had thought, wouldn't it be cool if they could design their own game, and wouldn't it even be cooler if a bunch of people could play it, around the world, leave their mark.
Okay.
And so, yeah. So Pajitnov starts trying to come up with an idea for his own game. And he thinks back to his childhood, and he loved playing with these simple wooden toy puzzles called pentominoes, where you would fit wooden shapes into a a rectangular, kind of puzzle outline. And if you lined up the shapes just right, you could kind of fit them all in and it would just complete. It was like a puzzle, but just with basic geometric shapes.
Tetris?
It was sort of, I guess he wouldn't have had that sort of frame of reference to say whether it was, Tetris or not.
Because he made Tetris? Is that where this story's going?
Well, Tetris hadn't been invented yet. That's all I'm saying.
I hope I just stole your thunder.
Well, the people who are listening to this are already going to know what it's about. So he designed basically, yes, this is about Tetris. So he designed basically that. He called it genetic engineering. You take these pieces from the outside. It was a very, you kind of arrange them. It's a very neat program, especially to do it on what's basically an ASCII computer. But it was boring, right? Once you solve it once, there's no fun in it to do it a second time.
So he made Tetris Marathon?
So what he did is he kind of turned the rectangle on its side, and he had the pieces start to drop from the top. And so you can't just pick your pieces now. Maybe you just have to kind of figure out how to piece them together and survive as long as you can, which was kind of cool. But, if you finish a line, the pieces stay there. If you don't finish a line, pieces stay there. So you're just going to lose in a, pretty quick amount of time. So the third alteration he made to his design was
the pieces
if you complete a line, it disappears.
Right.
And all of a sudden, Tetris, as we know it, was born. So simple, so elegant, so addicting. Super addicting. He came up with the name Tetris by combining tetra from 4 and is from tennis, which was his favorite sport. It was just like 4 tennis. I don't know what the tennis has to do with any of it.
It's so weird what people name things sometimes.
It is kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Schmacks.
Section B, lab containment breach. Well, getting this game to run, on this specific computer that they were using in Soviet Russia, on ASCII graphics was an achievement. Nobody was going to be playing it if that's the only thing you could play it on. They needed to get it on different computers. In order to expand the potential audience, he approached a coworker, one of the 3 guys that he was working with, 16-year-old programming wunderkind Vadim Gerasimov, and he asked him to port it to IBM-compatible computers. This was a big challenge, as Gerasimov had never actually used an IBM computer before, but in a few days he got it done. He even added color to the pieces, which was a big deal at the time in Soviet Russia, and a high score feature, which made it way more addicting because you could keep track of how well or how poorly you had done. Tetris was better than ever. What was worse than ever, though, was the prospect of starting a business in the USSR in 1984. That was basically unheard of, and they pretty quickly gave up on the idea of getting their software published or somehow making a business doing that. And instead, they just put all the games that they had made, including Tetris, onto a disc, and they labeled it Computer Fun Fair. Made a bunch of copies and kind of gave them to anybody who wanted them. One such person, funny enough, was a psychologist studying addiction. He got this IBM-compatible version. This is all happening inside Soviet Russia. And he liked the game, and he made a couple copies, gave it to his coworkers. And then he found out, pretty quickly that everybody was playing Tetris nonstop. So he tried to have all of the copies of the game destroyed. He was unable to do that, and very quickly Tetris was just back at at the workstation, so he decided to use it to study addiction instead. They actually brought in Pajitnov and got him to design like a 2-player version to do this addiction study with. But, in sort of, it's an illustration of the sort of ways that the game made it through the computer science community in the USSR, going from, lab to lab and school to school. Pajitnov hadn't made any money on it, but, he was pretty happy that the game was sort of this underground success. Everybody who played it loved it, man. This thing fucking bangs.
Yeah, Tetris fucks for sure.
Absolutely, it's Tetris.
So, like I've mentioned it before, but like a lot of things in this house are settled with Tetris and Nintendo Switches. Like dishes, dog poop, dinner, who's going to run to the store. It's like, well, I'll play a game of Tetris for it. And that's completely fair. Whoever wins, best 2 out of 3, making dinner tonight. Deal.
There you go.
And then it'll become like, best 3 out of 5. It escalates pretty quick.
Yeah, because it's Tetris, and Tetris is
addictive.
So great.
It's completely addictive. It's a great game.
Right.
It's a great.
It is a great game. Actually, I want to just say, going forward, I'm going to kind of gloss over the success that Tetris is, only because like it's just self-evident, right? Like once everybody's exposed to Tetris, it's an immediate success. Everybody understands it.
Everybody
it's
likes
so
it.
simple. Yeah.
It's ubiquitous.
Everybody
and
who's
it's
listening
still
to this understands Tetris and understands what a just simple, great game it is.
Sure. And if you haven't played it in a long time, go play it, and you'll be like, God damn, that is a great game.
Go play Tetris Effect. Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Oh, so good. Pajitnov's boss was actually one of the people who really loved the game, and he eventually gave it to the SCKI Institute of Computer Science in Budapest, Hungary. They loved it. This turned out to be a fateful bit of sharing between two, kind of institutes in the USSR. Part 3, Jacked from the USSR.
So is this part 3 of chapter 1? Or are we on like chapter 3? what's your angle here? What's your thing, Spaceman?
I think it's all good, man.
Rocking this?
I think you're just misremembering stuff. It's all been It's been part 1, part 2, part 3.
But is it like part 1 of chapter 1?
No, it's always, I said part 1, I said part 2, I said part 3.
Okay. So it's like chapter 3 then.
Yeah, it's part 3. Jacked from the USSR.
All right. On with it then.
Robert Stein was this is a new guy. Sorry, there's going to be a lot of new people in this. Was the owner of Andromeda Software, which was a British-based software company that specialized in being kind of the middle person between creators and large publishers. He frequently would visit his native Hungary to find new software to sell back west. That was a big part of his kind of business model. You see, Hungary was a bit special. They were part of the USSR. They were, in there, but they were also kind of open economically since the 50s. There had been a revolution there, so they were kind of like a special economic zone.
I have a special hunger. Sorry.
I bet you do right now.
Oh my God.
But if something was going to come out of the USSR, it was probably going to do it via Hungary. It is kind of funny that even in these closed societies, like you find that in Japan, early Japan, when they were all closed off, they still traded from the Dutch in this one special port. Even in these like really closed off societies, they'll generally have like, well, we got this one space where it's kind of more, there's more trade going on, right? So
like a bit of a neutral zone, a bit of a experimental,
sort of a more relaxed
market,
more market based. Hey, everyone needs to make money, right?
Sure.
So Robert Stein was on a trip to the SCKI to scout for interesting software when he saw someone playing Tetris, and he said, "Oh, what's kind of this like basic looking game?" But he's looking at it, going, "Oh, what's this?" And the guy says, "Oh, this is Tetris," and he says, "Oh, let me give it a shot there." And he tries it himself, and oh, wouldn't you good and goddamn know it, He fucking loved it. Like everybody who has ever even set eyes on and played Tetris, as stated before. So he's like, yeah, this is going to be a hit, man. So he goes to the head of the SEKI and he says, let's make a deal. I want the rights to this. That guy says, we don't actually own it. That came from a different place, kind of more in the motherland, so to speak. But he did give him the contact info for the Russian Academy of Sciences, where Pajitnov worked and who had made it. So Stein sent them a telex, which, do you know what a telex is?
That's like a pre-fax or like kind of a old school fax thing.
Yeah, it's like a fax, it's like a fax machine with a keyboard.
Okay.
Kind of imagine that. So he sent them a telex and he offered to buy the rights to Tetris. Pajitnov, on the other end, he'd given up on his idea of getting his piece of software published in any sort of meaningful way. He gets this telex and he's like, oh man, this is great. But, the concept of like intellectual property didn't really exist in the USSR. So he kind of like, he did what he could to push from his end the idea of like licensing this thing that he had made for other people to use elsewhere. But nobody kind of knew what to do with this on the Russian end. This is kind of a funny part of this story. He did eventually get approval from his direct supervisors to send a message back saying, yes, we are interested. We would like to have this deal. Now, what he thought, what Stein, when he got this message back, he's like, great, I've got a tentative agreement now to license this, to get the rights for this game. So he immediately went to Mirrorsoft, which was a large European publisher at the time and part of the Maxwell Group, which owned newspapers and magazines and even a soccer team. They were big in Europe.
Did they also own those old cassettes, like the Maxwell tapes?
That's Maxell.
No, I'm pretty sure it was Maxwell.
I think it was Maxell.
You know what that is? You know what I wonder if that is kind of like an example of? The Mandela effect. You ever heard of the Mandela effect?
Yeah, people when people misremember things and think, no, there's no way I can be wrong.
Yeah. I always thought it was Maxwell, not Maxell.
Oh, it's Maxell.
Okay, well, whatever. Potato.
Yep. Uh-huh. They also had another U.S. based publisher that they owned named Spectrum Holobyte. So they made, like the Maxwell Group essentially made an agreement with Stein. The PC and console rights for the UK and Europe were sold to Mirrorsoft for £3,000 up front plus royalties. The US and Japanese rights went for $11,000 US plus royalties, pending ink, as long as Robert Stein can actually get a deal done with the Russians. I wanted to include the figures here just for like how low the original rights for this game were sold for. But Stein was technically selling the rights to something that he did not quite own yet, right? So he sends another telex and he makes an offer of $10,000 up front plus 75% of whatever he makes down the line. Pajitnov sends back another vague but, kind of positive response. Still nothing firm. Stein keeps pushing to make a deal, and eventually Academy Soft, which is kind of like the publishing wing of the Russian Academy of Sciences, took over the negotiations. They said that the only rights that they're willing to part with are the IBM PC rights. Stein's kind of okay with that, even though, he's technically sold the console rights already. But he's like, whatever, I'm sure I can get them down the line. I'm just going to agree to this. But that still didn't make these negotiations go down any quicker. By 1987, Mirrorsoft and Spectrum are ready to release their games in their respective markets on the PC. Feeling like he has no choice, Stein finalizes his agreements with them, again, assuring them that he's going to be able to get the license for this everything is going to be okay.
Hold up. This sounds shady as fuck. So
it
he
sounds
goes
a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You go.
No, please. I've gone plenty.
Okay. So he goes over there and he's kind of like scouting for software to bring back, little talent hunting. And he finds this game and he likes this game and he goes and he basically sells a game he doesn't own.
Yeah.
For an amount of money that makes probably even giving 75% to these other guys him just a whack load of money just for being a middleman.
Yeah.
It's almost just like a serendipitous, but like very greasy, taking advantage of that kind of situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here we are. He's basically sold something he doesn't own while buying something he hasn't sold yet to give, to actually have the money and the this and that.
And he's having trouble navigating the socialist system, to be fair. Like, he's spending like a year of his time trying to negotiate these rights, and he's pretty sure he's got like a verbal agreement and the parties are interested. He can't get anything in ink. So I kind of like, I don't think I have sympathy for his position if I haven't, properly explained that. But he is, he's trying to make it happen. But he also is trying to do something that's relatively unheard of at the time, which is, negotiate an IP for a video game out of Soviet Russia.
Yeah, I mean, that's gotta be pretty tough.
Yeah.
And the whole concept of individual, like, what's IP? It's like
right.
intellectual property.
I mean, they were able to just put the stuff out on a disc, I'm sure, because they had made it on company time, so it belonged to the people of Russia. You just put it out. Of course you can do that, right?
That's what I'm saying, right? Like the concept.
It's a game.
Yeah, it's just a game.
Yeah.
Because capitalism, if it's just a game and it's entertaining, just have it. That's kind of what I like about that kind of mindset. Like, it's have fun.
Well, and that was, Pajitnov, certainly that was his angle. He just wanted to get it out there.
Sure.
Episode D. Enter Elorg.
What the fuck is with these chapters?
Huh?
We're in chapters, sections, episodes.
No, it's been episode A, episode B, episode C, episode D the whole time.
Nope.
Yeah, absolutely has.
Nope.
Enter Elorg.
You will not gaslight me, sir.
Elorg was the Soviet department responsible for importing and exporting technology. Initially, they were just doing that for other communist nations, but more recently, they were kind of free to look for licensing deals anywhere and everywhere because, by the time the mid to late 80s were rolling around, the Soviet Union was not doing so great money-wise. They had been doing sort of routine interviews inside their various ministries, talking to people, trying to find various technologies that they could maybe license, that they had, that were inside their purview. And they're talking to Pajitnov about he was working on like speech to text recognition or something like that. Talk about all of his on the book stuff. And he just casually mentioned that he's having trouble getting a licensing deal done for this little game that he'd made. And they're like, beg your pardon? If anybody's making a licensing deal for anything like this, something that was made on company time, that should be us. We're the party that's responsible for that. So they were actually kind of mad about that. Now, I want to take a really little debate here. You can be all sorts of things politically, right?
Yeah,
you can
bounce around a lot.
Sure, you can be a capitalist, you can be a communist, you could be a socialist, whatever. But at the root of it, doesn't matter what type of government that you are in favor of. There's a more fundamental concern, and that is of centralism versus federalism. Now, what that means is someone who is a centralist believes that the central government of a state should be very, very strong and control all aspects of life for everybody in that state, regardless of how far away they are from the capital, versus a federalist who believes that every federation inside the state should have maximum power. That's just a very fundamental debate in politics. And if you're already familiar with that, I'm sorry for my very basic explanation of that. But all of that's to say, I'm somebody who's a very strong centralist. But this whole idea of trying to get even the people inside the Soviet Union didn't know who should even be responsible for trying to figure out who owned the rights to this game and to negotiate them with the outside world is kind of bananas. But it turns out it's Elorg, the people who should have been doing it. So they telex Stein and tell him that he's selling the rights to something that he doesn't have, and they less than kind of cordially invite him to come to Moscow and explain himself. To his great credit, he did do that. He said when he showed up, it felt like he was being interrogated. Being interrogated. They accused him of trying to circumvent them. He said he just found out that they existed, like he had been trying to go through as official channels, right?
Yeah.
He's getting railroaded by this insane bureaucracy. But he
it
told
is an
them
insane bureaucracy in Russia, especially at that time.
Absolutely.
The bureaucracy is just layers and layers of just who knows, everybody watching everybody and overseeing every other thing, and
the bureaucracy is expanding to meet the needs of the expanding bureaucracy.
Yeah,
that sort of thing. But Stein tells them, "Hey, listen, these games are already coming out. Like, probably too late to stop the gears on these games being at least released on shelves at this point." And the way that they had been marketed, you see, the thing about Tetris is it's hard to market even in 1986, I think, or 88, 89, when they're releasing these games. It's hard to market this game because it's not flashy. There's no story. There's no hero.
Right.
So what they did go with was this idea that it was this, like, Russian game that was crossing the Iron Curtain, this, like, kind of forbidden thing from the East. So it had already been heavily marketed as this big Russian, almost coming out party in a sort of video game form. And Stein basically told him, like, if you guys back out of this at this point, it's going to be hugely embarrassing for the Russian people on the world stage. So eventually, after many rounds of argument, they agree that in May of 1988, they had a deal that gave Stein the right to publish games on different types of computers, which is a fairly ambiguous phrase.
Sure.
As far as Stein was concerned, that gave him the rights to everything except arcade and handheld devices. As far as Elorg was concerned, or Elorg, that just meant computers. Subsection 5. Bulletproof.
See, now I just got on to your bullshit. So, carry on.
Hank Rogers. Hank Rogers was the owner of a Japanese development company.
Wait. Listen, you always do this thing to me in every episode. Today you brought a beer. He always does this thing where he goes, we're in the middle of an episode. I have to go get a beer, talk awkwardly to people. So he didn't do it this time. I'm doing it to you. I'll be right back. I'm sorry.
I love it.
I'll be right back.
I love it.
Yeah. Just hang out. I'll be right back.
You know what? I wanted to take this time to talk about what a terrific dude I think Kevin is in general. And I mean this in all sincerity. I just went through a bit of a loss in my family, and Kevin's been a really, really great guy for me. Want to shout out our audio engineer, Adam. who has gone through a tremendous loss, who's going through a hell of a time, and we're thinking about him right now. It's been a hard year on the old Fact Schmacks crew. Hug the ones that you love. But I just do want to say that for all our differences, I do love that deeply stupid man.
Still talking. Impressive.
Oh, and I just saw Shadow. That was so perfect. All righty.
What are you going on about over here, little
It
fella?
was. You're going to listen back, and I tell you what, I'm going to put a smile on your face.
Oh, did you say nice? No, you didn't say anything.
No, of course I didn't say it.
I'm sorry. I really had to, drain the dog.
All right. So, like I said, Hank Rogers, owner of a Japanese development company named Bulletproof Software. He was born in the
Hank
Netherlands.
Rogers a cowboy?
No, Hank. Oh, maybe. I don't know.
Dude, Hank Rogers was the cowboy, was he not?
No, this is Hank. Henk. Hank.
No. You said it like with an A.
Well, I'm trying, it's hard to not. It's Hank Rogers.
Hank.
Yeah, he was born in the Netherlands. He grew up in the States, but he followed his wife back to Japan. He married a Japanese woman, met her in Hawaii. He had developed a hit computer game in Japan called Black Onyx. He eventually became a Famicom licensee, and in 1998, he'd been getting more and more into publishing. In that year, he was introduced to Tetris, which was being shown off by Mirrorsoft in the UK. Pardon me. Rogers eventually learned that through a series of licensing agreements, it was actually Atari Games, the former coin-op division.
Wait a minute.
That would go on to found Tengen and fight with Nintendo over their business practices, that actually owned the Japanese rights at this point to release console games, at least as far as anybody was concerned.
Okay.
So Rogers ambushes Atari Games president Nakajima, the Atari Games US president Nakajima, while he's leaving work, and made an aggressive pitch to him in a parking lot as to why he should be the person to bring Tetris to Japan anyways.
Could you relate to that, having made many aggressive pitches to men in parking lots?
You son of a bitch. Well, they agreed to a sushi dinner, and during that meeting, Rogers, Hank Rogers must be quite charming, because Nakajima, he agreed to sell Rogers the Japanese rights to make the console version, but he couldn't get the arcade rights because he'd already sold them to Sega. Now, worth mentioning that nobody actually owned the rights to the arcade version, but
how come
Atari
we didn't talk
thought
about Sega in this whole thing till now?
because they're not really a player until the 16 bits.
Okay, so that's gonna be like the sequel to the trilogy.
Yeah, that's a that's a cool
Wars?
story too. Yeah,
Okay.
there's definitely at least a trilogy of that at some point. Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Yes. So Rogers and Hank Rogers and Bulletproof, they ended up releasing the game in Japan for the Famicom. They got the rights from Atari and they released the game. And initially, sales, they did not really blow anybody's hair back. Only about 40,000 copies were ordered by retailers. So Rogers approaches Nintendo of Japan president Hiroshi Yamauchi, who he had kind of a working relationship with, and he asked him for help pushing the game, from old Papa Nintendo. Now, Yamauchi was interested, but he didn't really know much about the game, so he passed it off to one of his programmers, who we've mentioned before, Shigeru Miyamoto. Now, just a quick word, because I don't think I actually wound up getting into this about Shigeru Miyamoto. We mentioned him last episode, but I don't think I actually mentioned like what his accomplishments are in general. He designed Donkey Kong, but he did also, go on to design Super Mario Brothers and The Legend of Zelda.
Oh,
which are two pretty big games,
really?
And a lot of their sequels until he just kind of became like the head honcho in terms of
that's funny.
Just
I've never heard of them.
Overseeing everything that Nintendo, like all of their games. I think he's like in charge of figuring out who's in charge of developing what games. He's like an executive producer, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, so he just kind of points the ship.
Yeah, he's high up there, and he's responsible for most of the franchises that you know and love in terms of Nintendo, unless it's Metroid.
Okay,
he basically had his hand in everything else.
So here's the thing that I don't think we mentioned during our episode on Nintendo is that sweet Jesus, Nintendo games are expensive. $80 for like a 10-year-old game.
Yeah,
that's
they
insane.
have this theory that their software is just always good. Like, doesn't get less good just because it's old.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't necessarily agree with it. Another thing I didn't mention, as long as we're talking about things we didn't mention in this like episode that's going to be an hour and a half long, I guarantee.
Oh yeah, we're only like halfway through, aren't we?
Oh yeah.
Oh, God damn it.
So one thing we didn't mention about the kind of policies that Nintendo brought forth in the last episode that I kind of meant to mention is that they worked. Like the stuff that Nintendo did in terms of limiting the amount of software that each company could put out, the Nintendo seal of quality, as laughable as it was and as unnecessary as it was a couple of years later, in the immediate aftermath of that video game crash, that shit worked and was probably the reason that there was a video game industry in North America after that crash.
Yeah, because you just had
in terms of
consistently
consoles.
Good, reliable, playable games.
Or at least the retailers knew that they were going to sell, which was the bigger issue. But anyway, sorry. Yamauchi had given Miyamoto this piece of software and said, well, let me know if this is any good. So a couple days later, Yamauchi comes back to Miyamoto and he says, hey, thing I gave you was any good? Miyamoto says, yep. Yamauchi says, why? Miyamoto says, because your accountants and secretaries are playing it. Yamauchi's like, oh, I get it. So Nintendo throws their weight behind Tetris in Japan, and orders went from 40,000 to 200,000 pretty much overnight. Tetris fever hits Japan. Right around that time, Nintendo had been looking to launch their Game Boy. As per usual, Nintendo of America was kind of...
What year is this?
1988, 89.
Okay. So I thought at one point we jumped up to like 98, you said?
No. Everything's been like 88, 80. Yeah. I might have said 98. Yeah. If I did, I meant 88. Sorry.
Okay. Because we'll always know on the playback.
Yeah,
but I thought at some point you said 98, and I remember sitting there going like, wait a minute.
I'm sorry. If I said 98, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm very sorry.
All right.
Led you astray.
Because the Nintendo came out, I was a young lad. I remember getting one a year or two after it came out, and I was still quite
Nintendo
young.
came out in 85 in the U.S.
Okay.
Yeah. So right around that time, Nintendo's been looking to launch their little Game Boy handheld. And as per usual, in America anyways, or the American territories, they would launch them with a pack-in game. So Hank Rogers in Bulletproof, he approaches Arakawa and says, hey, Arakawa, who was the president of Nintendo in the U.S. Sorry?
I was thinking of Hank Williams.
Hank Williams, right? Yeah, there you go. So sorry, Hank Rogers approaches Arakawa, who's president of Nintendo of America, and says, if you pack in Mario, it'll be for boys. But if you pack in Tetris, it's going to be for everyone.
The
Rogers tells
Game Boy was
Arakawa,
originally released in 89, not 85.
There you go.
Sorry.
Yeah, I said this is 88, 89, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So Rogers tells Arakawa he knows he can get the handheld rights, that they're up for grabs. Nobody has them, but he knows, at this point he's been kind of negotiating this Tetris minefield, and he knows where to get them. It's this guy, Robert Stein, who signed this original deal with the Russians that every sub-licensing deal at this point, all this stuff hinges on is this one original deal from Robert Stein, which said that he could develop Tetris for various computers. So Arakawa, from Nintendo of America agrees. He's like, yep, if you can go get the rights to that absolutely. That's going to be our pack-in game. Go right ahead. So Rogers, he contacts Robert Stein, but he's having a difficult time getting a firm answer from him about this handheld rights. He's kind of being a little evasive. And that's because Robert Stein did not have them.
The rights.
Module F, the New Deal.
You're such a piece of shit. Why are you doing this? Chapter 9 or something.
In 1988, Elorg had put a new guy in charge, Nikolai Belikov. And his first order of business was to figure out why the USSR had not yet been paid for Tetris. See, at the time, the deal that they had signed said that they were going to start getting royalty payments in 3 months, and it was 3 months after that 3 months. So those payments were 3 months late. What the hell is going on?
I'd be mad.
The same, right? He's mad. Yeah. At the same time, Robert Stein had sold rights to versions of Tetris that he did not own. And at the same time, Bulletproof, which was the Hank Rogers company in Japan, and Mirrorsoft, which is part of the Maxwell Group, from way back in the beginning, they're all trying to get the handheld rights to Tetris from Stein. Nobody's getting a clear answer. In February of 1988, everyone comes to the same conclusion. Go to Moscow, deal with the Russians directly, figure out what's going on. It is kind of funny that everyone went at basically the same time. Rogers is actually the first person to make his way there from Bulletproof Software. He meets with Belikov, and when he meets him, he shows him his Japanese version for the Famicom. It's like, hey, here's this version of Tetris that we produce. I'm one of the producers of Tetris. I want to get the handheld rights. Belikov is very confused because as far as he is concerned, the only rights that have been granted to anybody are for computer versions, for computers. So, little tense meeting at first because he's, as far as Elorg and Belikov are concerned, he's illegally selling this product. But Rogers is invited to come back the next day and make his case. And when he did, he met with both Belikov and Pajitnov, the original creator, which I think one thing that is amazing in this whole insane bureaucracy, the original creator did get a seat at the table to kind of figure out who was going to get the rights to this thing, which I think is really neat in this whole thing.
Okay,
but
let me do my job here.
Sure.
I find it kind of funny that it's like putting the toothpaste back in the toothpaste
tube.
Back in the tube.
Yeah.
Once it's out, this game's out.
It's already out, right?
It. They've done these things with it, and you kind of go okay, well, as a concept, it's a game. It's an intellectual property. But if you slightly change things, then it becomes kind of your own thing, right? And then you look at the aspect of, okay, so you're in.
Do you like playing columns or Tetris?
Yeah. So you're in Soviet Russia, who's boo capitalism, no capitalism, all this stuff, and then you want to apply these capitalistic rights of no, that's our property. You must pay us for it. So it's kind of funny that's the podium they're standing on.
At the end of the day, the person who actually has the legitimate rights from Russia, it's not so much Russia, it's that they're going to be able to pursue the case back home and say we own the rights to it, right? So just like, well, we'll get there. Listen. Oh, God. We'll get there. All right? So
subscript 15,
yeah.
Article 9, paragraph D.
Article. I didn't use article. So Rogers comes back. He meets with both of them. Rather than just having a pitch of being like, hey, listen, we're partnered with Nintendo. That should be good enough. He kind of realized he needs to give like a crash course in the whole like video game console industry as a separate thing from PC games. So he gives a crash course in like consoles, Nintendo's place in the console industry, kind of makes a point that through Nintendo, he's basically got access to 70% of the video game industry in 1988. And then, in that meeting too, they show Rogers the original agreement that they had with Stein. And he kind of points out, oh yeah, this line about various computer devices, that's a problem because that's kind of up to interpretation.
Sure.
So another thing that happened in this meeting is he and Rogers and Pajitnov, the original creator, they hit it off famously. As a matter of fact, after this meeting was over, they ended up painting the town red in Moscow. They went around, they drank vodka. They got along super duper well, just like two software developers, kind of kindred spirits. It's a nice part of this story.
That's adorable.
Right? These two guys, they found each other. That is, super awesome.
Belikov, I wonder if they started a podcast eventually.
Well, we'll get to what they started. Belikov, the guy who was in charge of these negotiations, he also liked the cut of Rogers' jib because he had made like really firm, sensible offers rather than this, royalties business. He had made him very firm, like, we're going to give you X amount of dollars per cartridge we sell, stuff that, the other guy hadn't said at all. So he liked the cut of his jib quite a bit. So after having this meeting with Rogers, Belikov met with Stein, the original guy who'd made the deal next. And he throws the original contract back at him and basically says, we haven't been paid. This is, this thing is listen, you can have this all you want, but we haven't been paid. And if you want any more rights, if you want the rights to arcade and handheld like you're coming with, listen, we're making changes to this original contract. So he hands him a new contract that's got all these penalties for late payments, really stiff financial penalties for late payments. And it's backdated to the original date that they had signed their original agreement with Elorg. And he says, until you sign this new agreement, we're not talking about anything else. So go and read it, figure it out, but until you come back and sign that, that's it. Next, Belikov met with Kevin Maxwell from the Maxwell Corporation.
Cassette tape guy.
Not the cassette tape guy.
Right.
But
that's what I meant.
There might be a reason that the Maxwell name is a little bit familiar to you.
Coffee.
No. Maybe not. But I don't think so. As far as I know, it's not the coffee folks.
Bob.
The Maxwell Corporation was formed by a guy named Roger Maxwell. Okay. He was a World War II kind of decorated hero. He had been an MP, very successful business person. Jack Reacher. He wound up, just not to cut his life into just the highlights there, but right at the end there, he wound up dead, naked, floating outside of his yacht. They'd figured he'd had a heart attack.
Wait. This is Ghislaine Maxwell's dad.
Yes!
Yeah, I've heard that story before.
That's what I was getting at, is as I was researching this, I was like, wait a minute. Why is this name familiar? Yes. So that's that family.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely didn't kill himself. Just like Epstein.
I have no opinions on any of that. I just thought that was the most bananas connection.
Yeah. I mean, that's a weird story that is not something that you and I should talk about because we're not
don't know all the facts
to things. But at the end of the day,
the yacht was the name, the Lady Ghislaine. So I was like, wait a minute,
put it together for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a neat tie-in. And I'm just gonna put a bow on that whole thing is just very shady, and just you look at it and you go like, yeah, come on, man, that dude knew some secrets.
Yeah,
I don't know everything. I don't want to know everything. That's not a story I like to hear about. But
Belikov. So the Maxwell Corporation, they had sent their secret weapon, which was Kevin Maxwell, the son of Roger Maxwell, which would be the brother of Ghislaine Maxwell.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Now, by this time, Belikov is like angry with everybody, probably except Hank Rogers, in the situation, because he thinks that Stein has abused his deal, that he never had any of these rights to begin with. And this Kevin Maxwell guy who's showing up, they have deep ties to the Russian oligarchy. So he has like ties right to the Kremlin.
Okay.
So he's showing up and kind of maybe pushing that point about all these ties that he has for Russia. There was an incident. Now, Kevin Maxwell's group was the group that originally sold the Famicom rights or the console rights in Japan to Bulletproof.
The Famicom was like the Nintendo console in Japan.
In Japan, yeah. They just called it Famicom. Which kind of started this snowball of this kind of thing getting back to Elorg and saying nobody owns any of the console rights. So they were the people who originally done this. There was this kind of like weird incident where Belikov handed him this copy of Famicom copy of Tetris that he had gotten from Hank Rogers, and he was like, hey, what's this? And Kevin Maxwell had apparently said, I don't know, it must be pirated. And Belikov reacted very badly to that because, like, you sold the rights to these people to do that. You have no idea what's going on. So that came off very, very badly to the Russians. But he couldn't blow them off entirely. So, it is funny. Everyone kind of leaves thinking that they had got what they wanted. Kevin Maxwell winds up leaving with the right of refusal for a handheld version or a console version. Sorry, not a handheld version, console version. Stein comes back.
There's so many players in this. Like I'm trying to keep track.
It's fucking crazy, right? Stein, who had made the original agreement, the agreement that everyone else's agreement is technically hinging on, at this point, he comes back and he says, "All right, I've agreed to this new deal with the monetary penalties for late payments." And he left thinking that he had gotten the arcade rights and he had secured his PC rights. But what he hadn't realized is that Belikov, the Russian negotiator there, he had sneakily snuck in a definition of what a computer actually is into the new contract. And he had defined it as a device with, a keyboard and a hard drive and a monitor and an operating system. These things that a video game console obviously were not. So because the contract was backdated, it actually voided all of the console rights that Robert Stein thought he had. So at this point, nobody owns the console rights or the handheld rights. Somebody does own the arcade rights. Somebody does own the PC rights. But a lot of people think... I know, but a lot of people think that they own rights to a lot of things. When it came right down to it from the Russian side, Pajitnov clearly favored Hank Rogers, and his pitch had been the most honest and no nonsense. And it was nice that Pajitnov was involved in all of this. So Rogers, he was able to make a deal for the handheld rights to Tetris. And then Belikov suggested, hey, maybe make an offer on the console rights because, nobody owns those. Now, Hank Rogers knew that Nintendo would be very interested in the home console rights to that, particularly in the U.S. So he flew back to Japan. Immediately, he gets into contact with the Nintendo America president, Hikuro Okawa. I think it's Hikuro. I can't remember. Who passed that along to Howard Lincoln. Now, if you remember, Howard Lincoln was the awesome lawyer who stared down Universal and said, you guys don't own the rights to King Kong. He was now a senior vice president at Nintendo. He saw this as an opportunity to hurt Atari Games, who thought they owned the console rights to this in North America and were just planning on putting this out on their 10-gen label, who, if you recall, had sued Nintendo for hundreds of millions of dollars. So in the middle of the kind of firestorm of lawsuits, this kind of became a focal point inside the focal point. But they still had to get all this done in secret. Episode 7, it's all coming together.
Listen, these numbers, the chapters, the episodes, whatever they are, could you have at least had them line up slightly so I have an idea of where we're going? Like we did F and now we're doing 7.
Yeah.
What the fuck, man?
The problem is, honestly, the problem is that in an audio format, there's only numbers or letters. Come up with synonyms all you want. I can't do Roman numerals. I can't do that little I thing,
Yeah, but you did 7 and F, which is like A, B, C, D, E. I don't know. It's close enough. That is fucking frustrating.
So
I guess they're different, but I'm sure you've had 6 in there as well, which I don't know.
Yeah,
when I listen back to this,
the 6th letter.
No.
Yeah.
I
so
like how you also counted on your hands.
Oh yeah, I sure did. So Howard Lincoln and Arakawa end up going to Moscow in secret to secure the rights. Maxwell Corp, who had been given, first right of refusal, they got a 24-hour notice saying that the asking price has been $5 million. Nintendo laid down $5 million on the spot and basically said, we'll outbid anybody. Like, we're getting these rights. This is going to be huge. Funny how the first offer was, like $10,000?
Yeah, now you're up to $5 million. I wonder what the dude who sold Wordle got.
Yeah, I can't remember. And this is 1989 money.
Oh, yeah, that was
money.
Huge.
Yeah. So eventually, Maxwell Corporation got back and said, we thought we already owned that. Well, that was enough for Belikov, and Elorg signed a deal with Nintendo. And so then they turn around and they send a fax to both Robert Stein and to the Maxwell Corporation saying, hey, handheld rights and the console rights have been sold to Nintendo. So, just so as you know, those are off the market. Ciao. The Stein, he just kind of he wasn't happy for sure. He thought he had been bamboozled. He thought he had been undercut. He thought he had
he was
been
kind of
cheated.
A bamboozler.
But, again, he played the game, and they outplayed him, frankly. The Maxwell Corporation, though, Kevin Maxwell, he did not take that well at all. He went right to Daddy. And Daddy went to Daddy went to the Russian government, which investigated Belikov, but Belikov stood his ground and said, nope, this was the best deal that we were going to get, which is pretty easy to, prove when you went from 10,000 to 5 million, right?
Sure.
The Robert Maxwell eventually went to Gorbachev in 1989 when the Soviet Union was falling apart, and asked Gorbachev to intervene. And Gorbachev was like, buddy, I got way more important things to deal
look
with.
around you. There's walls falling down and all kinds
So Gorbachev told him
things
that
going on.
Gorbachev told him to no longer worry about the Japanese company. Basically, like, I'm not doing fuck all about this, buddy. But that still leaves one player on the field, Atari. They did not go down without a pretty lengthy legal battle. Howard Lincoln delighted in sending Atari a cease and desist. Atari answered back, we were pretty sure we owned those. As you know, we bought those rights a year ago from such and such company, but yeah, that went to court. It got kind of incorporated into their. It didn't get incorporated into their kind of mega suit against each other, but it was the same judge that saw all of their suits against each other. So that judge really kind of quickly that didn't even go to trial. Wasn't rolled from the bench, but there was just a preliminary dismissal. Basically saying, yes, Nintendo absolutely owns the right to this. You can't publish this anymore. So Atari, who had spent millions of dollars on publishing this thing, had to recall all of that product. Just another one of the kind of casualties in the Atari-Nintendo war.
Ouch.
Now it is, which sucks.
Yeah, I mean,
for them. Although, they wound up on the wrong side of a bomb licensing deal, right?
Sure. Which, I mean, I don't think anybody set out completely maliciously. It was almost just handled so poorly and just so haphazardly. Yeah. Like the names you throw out, and like eventually by the end you're like, okay, I'm kind of following along, but
everything is hinging on this one this one rickety link.
Yeah.
That isn't really a meeting of minds anyways. Like, that's not what the Russians were meaning to sell. Now, it is worth mentioning, like, although the other parties in this lost, everyone made money on Tetris.
Sure.
Everybody made money on Tetris. Everybody, that is, except old Alexei Pajitnov. Oh. He hadn't made a dime. Unit H for happy ending. Or didn't he?
All right.
Eventually, Pajitnov made it to the U.S., and he wound up forming a company with Hank Rogers of Bulletproof Software. They called it the Tetris Company. And in 1996, through, who knows, some sort of rights and money and good goddamn it, I don't know, the rights reverted to him. So he actually owns, he owns the rights to Tetris now, and he gets paid. You know what?
He does.
That's right on, as far as I'm concerned.
Good, he got
good for
what
him.
He made back.
Yes, he's not going to get the billions that were made in the Tetris heyday, but fucking good for him.
Oh yeah, but I mean Tetris is still popular enough. I mean, there's people playing it all the time when you go on the Switch.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They have where you play against people and stuff, and it's
the Tetris 100 or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you played Tetris Effect?
No.
Tetris Effect is like a bunch of techno music with Tetris and kind of awesome visuals.
That's kind of how
It's really it's I'm doing a bad job explaining it. It's really, really good.
Okay.
Yeah. It's all mood based.
I'll definitely take a look at it.
So this is the conclusion. I could not have told the story of Tetris if you didn't really know the history of Nintendo and Atari. So I needed to tell those goddamn stories first.
Okay.
I don't know if that was worth it.
This is the trilogy effect. You're always going to be like, oh, well, the other two was Atari and Nintendo, and then this is a game. People will be like, we demand Commodore.
Commodore's in there in places, but they were never as as big
of a player.
Jack Tramiel, who started Commodore, ended up buying the Atari brand and launched the Atari Jaguar and the Atari
let me ask an important question here.
Lynx.
Is Tetris 8-bit?
Well, the original one, yes. Well, yeah, absolutely.
Was the famous one?
Yeah, Tetris. Yeah.
8-bit? I guess it would be.
Yeah. It's for the Nintendo. So it was 8-bit.
For the Game Boy.
Well, a lot of this revolved around the computers at the time were all 8-bit. Yeah.
Yeah, no, okay.
So I imagine
I'm looking just for flaws.
I'm pretty sure that the Game Boy was 8-bit, but yeah.
All right.
I love this story though. I love the story because the Soviets kind of played the capitalist game a little bit better than some of the capitalists involved. I love that part of it.
Yeah, like that to me, that I brought that up, how it's kind of ironic that the Russians are now like, oh, no, pay me. Like, I thought you weren't buying into this whole thing.
Well, they still need money, right?
Sure. Everybody needs money.
Everybody needs money. And as far, they weren't charging people in Russia to play or in the USSR to play it, charging foreigners.
Yeah, true.
That's okay.
Speaking of making money, I got a closing fact.
Okay.
That has to do with making money. But I got your closing fact here. I got it right here. It's about a false fruit. We're going to talk about strawberries. Think of fruit.
False
That's
fruit?
One of my favorite fruits would be a strawberry. Here's the thing, though. The strawberry is technically not a fruit at all. In botanical terms, that is.
Oh.
Fruits are seed-bearing structures which grow from a flower's ovaries, and a strawberry is merely the swollen base of the strawberry flower. The plant's true fruits are small, hard, nut-like pips embedded around the outside of the flesh. The seeds are contained in the pips. Strawberries came originally from the Americas. Garden varieties were first bred in the 18th century France from spontaneous hybrids between North American species and a Chilean species. So the strawberry itself is not the fruit that you think it is. It's merely a swollen plant that contains fruit on the outside of it. It's kind of weird to think about.
That is weird. There's a lot of... Okay. A couple jokes have been made there. Anything that's swollen.
Here, let's hope these bear fruit.
Here's where my mind originally went. I've been drinking a lot more gin and tonics lately, and because I suddenly switched to gin and tonic, we did not have any lime in the house, but because I'm going to be drinking a lot of gin and tonics, I thought I need one of them.
I like how you used to call them Jim and Tonics.
Jim and tonics?
Yeah. Tell us more about your drinking.
Oh, brother.
You got me some gin and tonics. The Jim Atomic here.
Uh-huh.
I think that's going to be your new drunk alter ego name, Jim Atomic.
Jim Atomic?
Holy Atomic.
Shit, that's a great name.
That name fucks.
Man.
All right, Jim.
Duke Nukem and Jim Atomic.
Jim Atomic.
There's Jim Atomic wanted some lime for his gin and tonics.
Yes.
So I was talking to the old lady there, and I said, we need to get some false lime. Just meaning one of them, like, lime squeezers.
That's exactly how Jim Atomic talks to his old lady when he's drinking.
My God. That was such a nothing story, but I'm so glad we got Jim Atomic out of it.
Oh, my God. I can't laugh right now because I'll die. But I want to laugh about this.
Well, this is Jim Atomic signing out. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Fact Smacks.
We hope you enjoyed our show. If you want to hear more, be sure to check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/factschmacks.
Or you can check us out on Facebook or on YouTube or on twitter.com @FactSchmackedPod.
We also have a website, factschmacks.xyz, because we know you haven't had enough yet.
Sure.